There have been a lot of analogies when it comes to starting a business. The flywheel, positive feedback loop, a rocket, but there's one very important aspect all those have in common. It is nearly impossible to start, but once it gets going, it's nearly impossible to stop. Today I want to share with you why that is and how you can actually hack that process by latching on to someone else's rocket that's already well on its way. So with that being said, let's get into it. When you're first starting out, there's a lot to learn and a lot to do. And so you have to learn a lot of skills. For example, some of the stuff that I've learned since I started are things like cinematography, video editing, software engineering, website leadership, etc. And this is exactly why 90% of businesses fail. There's just too much that you have to know and too much that you have to do. Our metaphorical escape velocity for our rocket taking off is just way too high. With this much friction, it's just too difficult. But if we can find some way to break through this barrier and get into space, it's literal smooth sailing as far as you can go to any destination that you want. Aside from the occasional asteroid and black hole, but we'll worry about those when we get there. But it can't be that hard. It's not rocket science, right? Now let's get literal for a second. This is the equation for the escape velocity of a planet, say Earth. And m is the mass of the Earth, so pretty big. In fact, it's so big that the escape velocity for Earth is 11.2 kilometers per second. That's like 33 times the speed of sound. So, you know, that's pretty fast, and that velocity would be pretty hard to achieve. Now, what does this have to do with starting a business? Well, a lot actually. I've uncovered over the years that a lot of things in the universe are connected. And I don't mean that in a weird hippie kind of way. I mean that in a sense of many jurisdictions of thought are applicable in other areas of life. So just because this equation is from physics doesn't mean it couldn't be applicable in entrepreneurship. Now there's somewhat of a loophole in that escape velocity equation, and that's the R, which is the distance from the center of the planet to the point you're taking off. Now normally this would just be the radius of the Earth if we were launching at sea level like they do in Cape Canaveral. But let's be a bit smarter than that. If we increase R, that means that our escape velocity will actually be lower and therefore a lot easier to take off. So with that in mind, it almost becomes obvious what we need to do. We need to launch our rocket from the top of Mount Everest. In the physical world, that's pretty much impossible to do, not only for the safety of the Nepal people, but can you imagine building a rocket launch pad on top of a mountain? However, in business, this is actually pretty doable. We just need to find someone whose rocket is well on its way and launch off of the top of that rocket. Now, what does all that mean in a real sense? Well, to make things easier for ourselves, we should find a product, a market, a trend, or a company that's already doing really well, and then build our company on top of that. And I'll give you a real life example right now out of my own anecdotal experience. It was 2016, and I was working as an electrical engineer at a small consulting firm in North Dallas. Now I knew I wanted more than this. I knew there was more to life than just working really hard to make someone else rich. It was at this point I started researching, and you might be at that point now, and that might be why you're watching this video, because you're trying to figure out what to do. How to make money online and start a business from home, be my own boss. These were the things that riddled my Google search for months and months on end. Then I found it, a business that was dominating a market, shredding any competition that stood in their way, a perfect launch pad for my business. That company was Amazon. If you know my story at all, you know that the rest is history. I built a business on top of Amazon selling physical products all over the country, something that would have been essentially impossible to launch if I had tried to do it from the ground level. Fast forward a few years and I'm using companies like Roku and AWS to launch software all over the world quickly and with a lot more ease than if I tried to build it from scratch myself. And just like I've built my company on the backs of other successful companies, many people have built their companies on the back of mine. Now this doesn't mean that it's easy or that anybody with a keyboard can do it. It just means that the escape velocity is lower. It means that it's easier if you latch yourself on to an already exploding idea and let that idea take you to a much higher place. Now there's still plenty of blinking red lights and fuel leaks, and maybe you'll even run into an asteroid along the way. But if you can skip some of that headache, why wouldn't you? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.